wonder why our minds chase status or obsess over luxury? This is Mind Matters. I'm Ivana, shining a light on the psychology behind our everyday pursuits, from money stress to social standing. I explore how we think so we can reshape our world from the inside out, because in the end, every mind matters. Hey everyone, welcome back to Mind Matters. I'm Ivana, and today I am venturing into the science of attraction. Not the typical dating tips stuff, but the actual measurable biology and psychology that make us go, wow, I really like this person. I'll be drawing from some brilliant minds, like David Buss and Robert Sapolsky, and diving into a variety of studies you may not have heard of before. I'll talk hormones, context, weird experiments, and a little evolutionary psych to tie it all together. And trust me, some of this is going to surprise you. First things first, attraction isn't just about outward appearance. While being physically appealing can catch someone's eye, it's what happens beneath the surface. The hormones, neurotransmitters, social context, and even unconscious cues that really keeps the spark going. David Buss famously argued that men and women across cultures have evolved distinct mate preferences, all of them the same. You've heard them before. Men favor youth and physical signs of fertility, while women tend to look for resources and stability. But it's never that simple. We'll see that context can flip our preferences in surprising ways. And Robert Sapolsky has shown that everything from stress levels to social hierarchies can shape who we're drawn to. Before we get to the fun, let's lay down the basics. Hormones versus neurotransmitters. Hormones are the slow but powerful chemical messengers running through your bloodstream. They influence long-term states like stress, bonding, and sexuality. Key players are testosterone, estrogen, oxytocin, and cortisol. Neurotransmitters are more like the sprinters, zipping around in your brain and controlling immediate reactions. Think dopamine, pleasure, serotonin, mood, and norepinephrine, excitement. When you're attracted to someone, these messengers start firing, and you feel everything from sweaty palms to daydreamy euphoria, but that's just the physiology. Let's get into the real-world studies. In this part, I'll talk studies done on men. Ever heard of the cheerleader effect? It sounds silly, but it's backed by research. Walker and Vool, 2014. Essentially, if you see a person in a group, especially a group of conventionally attractive people, you tend to judge that person as more attractive than if they were alone. It's a cognitive quirk where our brains average out features and assume the individual must be at least as attractive as the group norm. This ties in with what we might call social proof, similar to the vetting effect for men, where a guy is more attractive if other women show interest. This phenomenon points out that people often rely on group context to gauge someone's desirability. Let's jump into a classic but still amazing study by Dutton and Aaron, 1974. Men crossed either a sturdy, boring bridge or a shaky, high bridge. On the other side, they were approached by an attractive research assistant who gave them her phone number. The men who crossed the scary bridge were significantly more likely to call her afterward. Simply put, when your heart is pounding because of fear or adrenaline, you may misinterpret that physical arousal as sexual or romantic attraction. So if you're on a thrilling roller coaster ride for a date, you might feel more attracted to your date because your body is already revved up. And then there's the beer goggles effect. Yes, science has even tackled the question, does alcohol change our perceptions of attractiveness? Spoiler alert, it does. Atwood et al., 2012, found that when people consume moderate amounts of alcohol, they rate faces as more attractive compared to when they're sober. Cautionary note. This isn't an endorsement to rely on beer goggles to find a match, but it does highlight how judgments can be influenced by our states. Closely related is the so-called closing time effect. Gladio and Delaney, 1990, showed that As the night goes on and people anticipate the bar closing, they begin rating the remaining potential partners as more attractive, possibly a last-minute evolutionary push to choose someone rather than go home alone. So yes, your standards might literally shift with the clock. Now let's look at what women are up to. We've all heard that women prefer men with strong jawlines and the like, but let's dig deeper. As a reminder, Parker and Berkeley, 2009, showed that a guy is rated as more attractive 20 to 30% more if he's surrounded by women who appear interested in him. This is often called mate choice copying. If others find you desirable, it must mean you bring something valuable to the table, right? And there's the t-shirt experiment. We've all heard about Wedekind et al., 1995, showing how women can literally smell compatible immune system genes. But what if we take it a step further? Roberts and colleagues, 2008, replicated and expanded on these findings, suggesting that it's not only about different genes, but also about how stress and diet can alter your personal scent. And the fun twist, people who eat more fruits and vegetables have a more pleasant, fruity odor, which can boost attractiveness. Zuniga, 2017. Miller colleagues, 2007, famously tracked female lap dancers' tips. They made more money when ovulating, but the story doesn't end there. Hazelton and Gildersleeve, 2011, found that during peak fertility, women not only prefer more masculine men, but they also engage in what we could call competitive ornamentation, dressing more provocatively or wearing more makeup, possibly to outcompete rival females when their fertility is highest. And there is viral claim of vocal fries circulating the web right now. Maybe you're aware what pop culture's been talking about. It is where the voice gets low and creaky at the end of sentences. Some studies suggest that men find it off-putting, while others indicate that in certain contexts, it can be perceived as a sign of authority or confidence. UASA, 2010. So the jury is still out, but it's fascinating that even subtle vocal changes can influence perceived attractiveness. Here are some fun facts beyond the usual. Fink and Matz, 2008, talked about the estrogen glow. But there's also research that men can subconsciously detect fluctuations in women's facial redness across the menstrual cycle. Burris, 2015. This is so subtle that women might not notice it themselves. But men's brains apparently pick up on the signal. Speaking of color, Elliott and Niesta, 2008, found that men rate women as more attractive and sexually desirable when they wear red. Interestingly, women also find men in red more attractive, Elliott, 2010. Psychologists believe red is tied to passion, power, and possibly fertility signals. Lorenz, 1943, kicked this all off by saying baby-like features trigger caregiving responses. Further work by Glocker and colleagues, 2009, found that men's brains show heightened activity in areas related to reward and nurturing when shown infantile facial proportions. It's an evolutionary push to protect and provide. And I can't skip my favorite scientist Sapolsky's take on stress and attraction. Robert Sapolsky, 2017, has argued that high stress, think cortisol spikes, can actually kill the typical attraction cues in men. So while men might initially respond to certain hot signals, if they're chronically stressed due to work, environment, or social status, they might experience lower libido or even become indifferent to sexual signals. Stress is a huge factor in sexual function and desire, often overshadowed by the more famous players like testosterone. Now let's connect these scattered findings with evolutionary psychology featuring none other than Dr. David Buss, and references to Robert Sapolsky's work on behavior and hormones. Buss and Schmidt 1993, introduced sexual strategies theory, describing how men and women adapt their mating strategies depending on short-term or long-term goals. For short-term flings, men may focus on youth and physical attributes signaling fertility, while women prioritize traits signaling good genes, like symmetrical features or masculine characteristics. Buss, 1989. But for long-term commitments, both sexes shift gears. Men start looking for traits like loyalty and warmth, while women want resources, dependability, and emotional stability. And what about jealousy? Ever wonder why jealousy can be so intense? Buss, 2013, calls it an adaptation designed to protect our relationships and offspring. In a sense, jealousy is a built-in alarm system. It's not irrational from an evolutionary standpoint. It's there to ward off threats to resources or genetic legacy. And social status. Robert Sapolsky's research on primates shows that in many species, higher social rank leads to lower cortisol levels and more mating opportunities. This is something I touched on in a previous episode. Basically, individuals who show status and confidence appear more attractive because they, unconsciously, signal lower stress and better coping, plus better access to resources. Fun twist. It's not always about being rich or alpha. People who display emotional stability and stay calm under pressure can also come across as more appealing because they appear to have it together. And now a bit about the social context. People who subtly mimic your body language or speech patterns are often rated as more likable and attractive. Chartrand and Barg, 1999. This phenomenon, known as the chameleon effect, can happen unconsciously. So if you notice you're mirroring someone's posture, it might not be an accident. You're just subconsciously trying to get on their good side, or they on yours. And this is a favorite of mine. Humor is a display of intelligence. A sense of humor is almost universally listed as a top attraction trait. But why? Evolutionary psychologists argue it can serve as a showcase for intelligence and creativity. Greengross and Miller, 2011. Humor shows mental agility. You're quick, you're witty, and that can signal good genes or good problem-solving skills. And did you hear about the halo effect? Once you see someone as attractive in one domain, say physical looks, you're more likely to attribute other positive traits to them. Thorndike, 1920. So, if you find your date attractive, you might also assume they're kinder or more competent, even if you have zero evidence. This effect works in tandem with everything else, creating a powerful cocktail of illusions. And I want to include some fun, surprising nuggets. Currently, I'm reading Behave by Sapolsky. In the book, he describes a baboon troop that experienced a sudden die-off of its most aggressive males. They ate some contaminated meat. The troop's social structure changed dramatically. They became more cooperative, less stress all around, and interestingly made more stable pairings. This basically suggests that if the most aggressive or domineering elements are removed, group cohesion and healthier relationships can flourish. Might hint that super aggressiveness isn't always the best strategy for long-term attraction. And these days, there are virtual reality experiments. Researchers are using VR scenarios to test attraction in controlled environments. Banakou, 2013. For instance, you can manipulate your avatar's height, body shape, or voice pitch and see how it affects social outcomes. Early findings suggest that even in virtual spaces, our evolved preferences, like certain facial proportions or symmetrical features, remain influential. So there you have it. Attraction is a whole stew of biology, psychology, context, and culture. From the subtle scent of immune compatibility to the color of your outfit, from your stress hormones to whether you're crossing a shaky bridge, all of these factor into that potent mix we call chemistry. David Buss and Robert Sapolsky have shown us that it's an evolutionary puzzle, with each piece shaped by survival, reproduction, social hierarchies, and stress, And while we might think we're consciously picking partners based on personality or looks, a million invisible cues are running in the background, guiding our choices in surprisingly ancient ways. Thanks for tuning in to Mind Matters. I'm Ivana, and I hope this episode on attraction in celebration of this Valentine's Day gave you plenty to ponder. Until next time, stay curious, stay fascinated, and never underestimate the power of a cool wing woman. See you soon. I will link all the studies and references in the show's description. If you found this discussion insightful, please consider sharing it with friends, family, or colleagues. Let's keep the conversation going about how we can make this affluent corner of Europe a healthier, more equitable place for everyone. Until next time, remember, your mind matters, and taking care of it is the best investment you'll ever make.